Hi, it's Aideen here at the Resonate podcast, and my guest today is Erin Duffy. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's a pleasure. Another performer here with us, and I'm going to share with everyone some of your background so that they have an idea of what brought you to being on my podcast. So, if you give us a second, I'm going to read this out to you, everybody now.
Sure
And let me
thing.
introduce Erin. So, Erin Duffy is a career transformation and stage presence coach. After 25 years managing dual careers, first as an executive in a creative agency by day and simultaneously as an actor and singer by night, she combined the two then to create her company, Inspirations SQRD squared. She works with mid career business professionals and leaders who struggle to feel fulfilled and confident and want to step into their personal power and advance their career. She helps them to clarify and own their own unique personal story. She believes our stories hold the insights that help us transform our lives. In her highly curated programs, her clients develop a richer personal narrative by clarifying the stories behind their life experiences. She then helps them to use the personal power of their story to catapult their career journey and use it to supercharge their stage presence. Sounds intriguing and exciting. Before I talk to you
Yes.
about your work and everything that you're doing now, tell us a little bit about where your confidence started. Where did your confidence come from, and how did you develop it?
That's a great question and one to really ponder because for me, it was always evolving, to be honest with you. I would say as a young kid, teenager, 20 something, I think I questioned myself quite often and wondered, if I would look at other people who had a real high level of confidence, and I always wish I could be them. And I would say it really came through experience, Aideen. It was sort of like, stepping forward and taking chances. A perfect example, and this is really small, but I remember way back, like you, we're both singers, right? And I knew when I was 3 years old that I wanted to be a singer actor. I knew that, and I was always the one, performing and running around and having a fun time. And I remember when I was around 7 or 8 years old, I knew it was after the first time I was on stage, and I just fell in love with being on stage. And I went home and I told my mom that when I grow up, I want to be an actor that sings songs. And I was just so full of, joy and excitement because, I loved being on stage. And I remember her saying really clearly to me, oh, honey, you can't do that. You'll starve in the street. And it really, at a 7, 8 year old, it really took me back. And it caused a bit of fear, like, who wants to starve in the street, right? And that sort of followed me throughout my junior high school years, but I still was performing. I was still dreaming and wanting and wishing for this because I just knew I was born to sing and act. And when I was 18, I told my parents, I want to major in theater arts. And they said, absolutely not. We won't pay for
Wow.
that. So I ended up doing communication arts, which was television and film production, which I love, is like my second love. But I still was singing and acting. I was still doing it. And then even when I graduated from college, I had to find a job. I didn't want to starve in the street, right? So I found myself going into corporate America, but at the same time, I was still performing and singing on stage. People looked at it as a hobby. But then what I was doing through those next years, and as you could tell in my bio, I actually created a dual career. So I was being a professional singer actor as well as a businesswoman at the same time. And so I guess in a way, I think I always had a level of confidence inside me that came from a drive that said, but I know this is my gift. I need to pursue it, even though I had so many voices telling me, you can't do that. And I kept doing it. Even when I literally could have shut that dream down very easily, I could just say, okay, that was a dream. That was fun. Now I'm just going to go and, do something else. But it always was with me. It never left me. And it's interesting because I wrote a one-woman show, a cabaret show that I produced, wrote, directed, as well as, performed many times. And it's called I Never Went Away. And it's all about my journey in having that from the day one. Yeah, great dream, you can't have it, and me overcoming. And it's all about that idea of you have a dream, you can kind of lose that dream, and then you reclaim that dream. And that's what my show's all about, and it really is my journey, but it matches so many other people's life's journey as well. When you have that deep, desire and that dream to share your gifts, and the world can kind of try to shut it down, we have the power to reclaim that and own that. And I think in a way that sort of has always been with me, because it would have been really easy for me when I look back that I could have shut that down, really.
Well, a lot of people do.
It was always there. They do. They really do. And I think in a way it was always with me, but I will say it was through that journey that I was able to really claim it. And I would say I really found that level of, confidence in a way. It came with experience, and it came with me learning to believe in myself. And I think that only could have come for me through my journey and looking and saying, look what you've done. And
yes.
Owning
you proved
that,
it to yourself.
And sharing that. I proved it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Do you think if your parents had been more supportive that you would have taken a completely different path, or would it have been much similar?
That's actually, I have thought about that. It's such a great question, because I wonder, yes, I think if they were supportive, I think I would have done way more shows, because when I was in elementary school and junior high and high school, most people didn't know I sang. Most people had no idea I wanted to act, because I kept it at bay. It was something I did in my own, my own bedroom, kind of thing. And I dreamed about it. And you would see me in the choir, or you would see me in the, the cast, but I never put myself out there. And yet I dreamed I wanted to do community theater. I wanted to do the children's theater, the local children's theater, but I didn't have those opportunities, and also back then too, we didn't have access like you do today to a lot of that. I mean, it would have meant, we had 5 kids too. It would have meant, like, if I was doing theater, it would have meant a lot of work for my mom to drive me here, do that, go up to San Francisco for auditions, all that kind of stuff. So I'm so aware that things were much harder then. But I also believe that they were supportive. I probably would have had more courage. I didn't have as much courage. I was afraid of the fear. I mean, I was afraid of that. It's so interesting. The starving in the street line stayed with me for many, many years. And that's why I worked so hard.
Same here. In my one was, my dad said to me, you can't make money in music.
It's very similar, right? Exactly. Yeah. Basically the same line. Yeah.
So it took me until my 30s to go back to college to study music. And I did it all myself. And that was my starting point. Up to that point, it was always a wish, but nothing I could take direct action on seriously, because of that thought that was stuck in my head. Yeah. Anyway, but I think, our soul knows, or something deep inside us has that draw, is being pulled in a direction. And I think people do get nudges and, get little pushes toward the things that are going to help them to evolve. Like, I think, people think that, pursuing the arts is a waste of time or something, or you can't make money at it. But actually there's a beautiful evolution to learning who you are, developing who you want to be and what you want to do through performance. And I know this is something you understand very well, because this is how you help people with your work a little bit too, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And there's a reason why we have the arts in schools, and why I believe it's as important as STEM. The arts are as important to how our children learn and how we evolve into adults. I remember when I was in school, and I wonder how it was for you. I fortunately grew up at a time when, in California, when the public schools were excellent. And I happened to go into a school system that, starting in fourth grade, you had the opportunity to play any instrument you wanted. And they started first with the violin, the cello, right? And then by fifth grade, it was band instruments, and they were handing them out. So everybody was doing band. Everybody was doing orchestra. Everybody was doing choir. And then you had sixth grade, seventh, eighth, ninth grade bands. And then you had, in high school, the symphonic band and the whole. And the thing is, our bands, we had like 250 people in our band. And we went to competitions, and we had all this extraordinary experience. And not everybody was going to become a musician. But man, the life lessons they learned by being amongst other people, learning instruments and working with a conductor that was teaching them the beauty of music and how it's transformative, and doing concerts, and just the whole bit. They have an appreciation for the art and for the arts. And to me, it's ideal for anybody, especially as we step into our careers. Bringing our artistic, creative side is so important. It doesn't matter what your job is. An accountant could benefit from using their artistic side. There's creativity in everything. And I think the more we promote and support that, I truly believe the better we are. And I've seen that with my clients. I have seen my clients in both the career transformation work and the stage presence work literally step in to their unique self, because they have learned to claim their voice. They've lost sight of it. And when they are able to find that and claim that and own that, it's incredible to watch how they step forward. So much stronger and more believing in who they are, the confidence that they have, and the clarity and the comfort they have in showing up as themselves and who they are. And a lot of that is reclaiming that side of themselves that they've let go of. And a lot of that tends to be that artistic side, because we all have it in us. Don't we? You've seen that too in all your clients, right?
Yeah. And I'm just thinking of that, that inner connection, that part of you that knew that you wanted to do ... And I feel like as adults, we get used to following that advice of, the parental figure, or your boss will say, well, your career path is this promotion next, and We stop listening to that part of us that has an opinion and may even have a bright idea or some inspiration for us. And I think when we do the artistic stuff, that encourages that connection to you on the inside. Would you say that's part of that journey for some of your clients as well?
Absolutely. Here's the interesting thing, is that the majority of my clients, as we said earlier, a lot of mid-career professionals. Now, these are professionals that have entered the workforce, right out of college, maybe before college. They've climbed up the ladder. They've done really well. They've grown in their career, making good money, lots of accolades, lots of promotions, and they hit that point where it's just not enough. And something inside them, it's a voice inside them saying, hey there, I'm still here. I'm that thing you might have checked out the door like back in your 20s, which was totally fine, but it doesn't disappear. And what happens is, are you ready to listen to it, or are you going to keep ignoring it? And my clients are the ones who are listening, and they're listening really deeply and saying, they're either saying I'm bored, or I'm missing out on something, or I know there's something better than this, or is this as good as it gets? And they're ready for what's next, but they have no idea how to find it, but they know that voice is calling to them. And my whole thing is, many people will go and look outside. They'll go look for another job and they'll go find another job, and it's a fantastic job. But a year later, they're like, whoa, I'm back at the same place, or they'll just keep ignoring it. And what happens is the answer isn't outside. The answer is right down deep inside you. And that is that voice. And it is that soul speaking back to you saying, hey, it's time. It's time to listen to that voice and do that inner work before you take that next step, because the answer is right inside. I always refer to, Wizard of Oz is literally one of my favorite, films of all time. I love the story, and I relate to Dorothy very much. She's kind of a superhero. And she, I always say, when you think about it, Dorothy had the answers the whole time. She had to go on this grand adventure, right? And all the stuff that happened to her, but the answer was right in her backyard the whole time. And that's what I try to tell my clients. The answer is right in your backyard. You just got to be willing and open to take that step forward and listen to it. And it's amazing when you listen, you open your ears, the answers are there and you're doing the work. It's your story. It's you who's doing it. It's not somebody else telling you what to do. You're figuring it out. And when you do, there's no going back, because it's just like, wow, this is who I am. And it really does come through that story. And you start to go back and you're starting to reclaim all these things that, you may have just kind of left dormant for a little while, or kind of checked out the door, or like you and I have a feeling there's quite a few people out there who heard the same thing you and I heard. A version of it. You're going to starve in the street. You can't make money at that. How are you going to raise a family with that? Those kinds of things. I have a feeling there's a lot of people out there. And what you and I both know is it's a limiting belief. You can change that belief,
And
plenty
of people do.
An enormous journey.
There's so many opportunities for people who want to work within the arts, within culture, within music. It doesn't always have to be what we think, I think when we're kids, we just want to be on the stage. But there's a lot of fulfillment to be the person who puts other people on the stage. That's what I found out when I started teaching.
Me too. After 25 years of performing, full time and with my other job, I hit a point, in around 2016 and 17 where it just wasn't enough anymore, because I had been doing it. And I thought, ooh, there's something more I can do. I wish I could merge these two careers together. And I just knew, you and I both, we love being on stage. I love performing. I love, taking a song and making it mine. I love that. But when I realized it wasn't enough anymore, I thought, what could I give back? And when I realized I could take the best aspects of both of my careers and build something where I could teach others to find their voice and own their voice and take that out into the world, it's incredible when, somebody in business can actually come into their voice and take that out. Talk about incredible leadership. And that mid-career professional and those leaders, that's what they're looking for, because that's when you want to come into your voice. It's time to. And it's your unique voice, and a lot of people don't have the tools to figure that out. And yet it's actually quite simple to do. It's just, to me, it's making a commitment to yourself to say, I'm going to put myself first now. I'm going to do this work for myself because it's going to help me and my career. And when we are on the right road for our career, it's amazing how it affects all the others around you. They see that. They see how happy and focused and really how you're just stepping into who you are. And then they want a part of that. They're like, how'd you do that?
Absolutely.
You're so full. You're so alive. You start to be a great example for others. And how cool is that? Right?
What do you say to those who are in that mid stage of a career who start to feel like they're diminishing in value? Because I think there's this arc that sometimes people feel where the newbies and the fresh employees are the valuable ones, and that I'm going, that my status in my business, is going down as I get older. And then eventually I'm some form of obsolete as a retired person. What would you say to someone who is feeling that energy?
This is the best time to put yourself first, because when you're at this point in mid-career, it is all of that experience and wisdom and passion that you have, that is your strength. And the newbies and the people coming up the ladder, they actually want you to show up that way. They're looking for you to share your wisdom and to step into your leadership. And this is when you get to define what leadership is for you. And when we get to step into our unique leadership and bring ourself to the stage. And when I say stage, I mean, it is every time you walk in a room. I'm not talking about standing on the old stage, right? Yes, that's part of it, right? But it is every time you walk in the room, bringing yourself fully, your full presence to that room. All those newbies and those people coming up, they're looking at you of like, I want to learn from him or her. They really do. But we have to show up. We can't ask them to do it for us. We have to step into it and say, this is the best time of my career. Most people, the best time of your career is going to be after mid-career, because now you've already proven yourself. Now you have choice. You have choice to say, yeah, this is what I love. And oh, by the way, getting clear on the stuff you don't love and you don't ever want to do again. And I always tell my clients, that's just as powerful as the stuff that you are really good at and that you really love. Because guess what you do? You say goodbye to the stuff that doesn't fill you up and the stuff that doesn't matter anymore. You literally park that in a garage and say, bye-bye. I don't thank you. And I always say, bless it, thank it for how it served you, but you don't need it anymore. Because then you get to focus on the stuff that really makes you unique and that you're really good at and that you just love. It just gets you out of bed in the morning. And when you start showing up every day like that, the people around you want more of it. They're going to be knocking on your office door, wanting to have a meeting with you. They're going to want to learn from you. But we as leaders, we as those mid-career professionals, it's up to us to show up that way. And it's so easy to do if you just step into it and say, I'm going to give myself the gift of time for myself to figure this out and own who I am and bring that to the world.
So it sounds to me like what you're doing is you're asking people at that point in their career where they don't really know exactly what it is to do next, to start to look inward and to see your own value and to see the value of all the experiences they've had and to start making choices based on what they truly would like to have happen next. And that brings all of that experience and all that value with them into a completely new phase, rather than going, oh, it was all a waste of time. And, what do I do next?
Exactly.
It's like it'll tell you what to do next if you take a look at it. Am I getting this right?
You are exactly right. And that's where one of the parts too that we do, especially the Own Your Story, Change Your Life program, which is the career transformation program, is we do this whole part, once we get through what excites you, what your value is, that piece, then we start to dive into what I call your life defining stories. This is where we draw on the stories throughout your life. I mean, we go back childhood, teenage years, starting out years, and in your adult years, and you start to see through these stories that you are coming out of you. You're writing them and things are coming out. You start to see these incredible golden threads that all tie back when you look back at the things that excite you, the things that drive you, the things that you value, and you start to look back at these stories and it starts to reveal your true essence. And sometimes, and then we ask questions like, how's that showing up today? And so many people are like, it isn't. And it's like, okay, well, there's a hole, right? It's like, this is your true essence, but you're not bringing it every day. You shut it down, whatever. But God, when they find it, because let's say the interesting thing about the stories, is these are stories we're remembering again, right? We might have parked them, and now we're rediscovering them and owning them again. And what's fascinating about these stories is once you've done that, you won't forget these stories ever again. Because now you realize they're part of your fabric, your tapestry. And they are so important to who you are and who you are becoming. They're a driving factor.
They're like a
And
fuel
they're your
for the
stories.
next thing.
They are a fuel. They are such a fuel. And they cement what you already know. Like, you're like, yeah, I mean, this is who I am. And it allows you to truly step into who you are becoming. I mean, this truly becomes your best next move in whatever you're doing in your career, because you did the work. It's not somebody telling you, take this course over here and go through this thing. And, a lot of times people will do that. 2 weeks later, they've kind of forgotten it because, life gets in the way, right? And the binder goes back on the shelf, or the module gets parked on a PDF somewhere on your computer, but life gets busy. But this kind of work, you're doing it. You're doing it. It's not getting parked anywhere, right? It's literally happening as you go, and you can't forget it. And you're transforming the entire time, and it's powerful. It's powerful. And when you can bring that unique personal presence to your job interview, because people are interviewing, right? Or to a leadership meeting, you believe me, they will notice. And they'll wonder,
can you give us any example of someone you may have worked with that you've seen a big transformation? Is there something you could share?
Yes, absolutely. So I had one client on the career transformation who was literally at a loss. She had a very successful career in corporate, and she found she was going up the leadership ladder, and she hit this point where she really felt like she lost her voice. She really wasn't speaking up. Every time she did, she felt completely like everybody's judging me. I don't know what I don't belong here. And yet incredibly smart. And her career was incredible if you look back at her resume, it's like, what's wrong, But she came to me because she knew she wanted to continue up this ladder, but she didn't want to show up the way she was showing up. She knew she wasn't being authentic. She would go home every night wondering, did I screw up today? Did I ruin somebody's day? Did I not lead well enough? Is the CEO looking at me like I was a bad choice? Like, these are the kind of thoughts she was having. And so she dove into this program with me. And just when she was discovering the things that excite her and the things that don't excite her, which, by the way, I call your non-negotiables. Because when you get down to the point when you can define the top 5 things, and then you look at it and you realize, oh, I'm missing 3 out of 5. There's an issue. There's an issue, because you must have these things. And she had noticed that some of it wasn't showing up for her. She realized, oh yeah, I really wanted to, I can't remember exactly. It was something about leading teams, and she wasn't able to lead the way she wanted to lead. It was almost her own limiting belief, by the way, that was holding her back. It wasn't something the company, it was a belief she had that she was unable to be she was more of a collaborative leader, but she felt like she couldn't be that way when she stepped into this directorship. Okay. And that was holding her back. And so we distilled that down. And then we went through values, we went through the whole program. And what was amazing, one, she just started speaking up. Like, she realized what her values were. When she realized her values were, she suddenly got her voice back, because she was basing her values on somebody else's values. I feel I need to show up this way. So she lost sight of really what mattered to her. When she got clear, suddenly she was walking into these leadership meetings and she was able to be herself again. She freed up her voice. And again, they were happy. She was making inroads. So like, things were happening at the company because she was showing up in her leadership. And I know that the C-suite knew who she was as a leader. That's why they promoted her. It was her judging herself. So for them, they were excited because she was really showing up, but it was her holding herself back. And once she found that voice, I mean, she just excelled. And it was just so rewarding to watch, because you could tell over here, looking at her resume, her experience, everything she brings to the table. It's like, why would she even be hesitant at all? But it was uncovering, those beliefs she had about herself, that we had to change that story. And her
Yes.
doing that deep work on her own story made all the difference.
Isn't that amazing? And it seems to me it maybe had something to do with the job title or something, or getting to a certain stage.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it can happen, like you become a wife, or you become a mother, or you become, the principal of a school or something. You take on a slightly different
Yeah.
role, and it's almost like your preconceptions of what someone in that role should do take over a little bit from you just being the best you can be within it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so funny you bring that up, because one of the original statements she had said to me, when we first started out, is she says, I don't think I deserve to be here. I don't deserve this title. She was a VP. She goes,
Yeah.
I don't think I earned this title. And that was really caused a roadblock for her. It was fascinating. But yeah, you hit that on the nose. And it's amazing how many people have that belief.
Yeah.
That
I
they don't
mean,
deserve to
with
be here.
singing,
Yeah.
even, I worked a lot with people on, just reclaiming the idea that if I sing a song, I sang it. So I sung it. So can I call myself a singer? Yeah. You could call yourself a singer. And I remember in college, the teacher came in and he said, you can be a full-time musician, a part-time musician, you can be a hobby musician. He started to say all these different ways of saying it, just trying to instill in each of us there that no matter what we ended up doing, we would have that as part of our identity, and that we could
Love
still
that.
own, I'm a singer. Like if I don't, like I'm a podcaster. I've called myself a podcaster since last May. I did my last podcast in May 2022, and then I took this long break, but I didn't take podcaster off my job title list, But no, but I had to step into that. I had to say what happens then when we kind of say, okay, this is what I'm becoming, and it's change,
Yeah.
isn't it? It sounds to me like what you're doing is it's like you're the fertilizer for change in someone's life, that they can
Yeah.
blossom. They needed
Yes.
they needed some extra nourishment
Yes.
and they needed some extra kind of clarity, obviously, as well. But once they had that, change was really possible.
You're exactly right. I mean, you hit it on the nose. And what's so wonderful about that statement is, and I use this all the time, is that it's never too late. It is never too late. One of the statements I do hear many, many times, especially from women, and they're mid-career. I mean, we're talking women in their 40s, and it's like, it's too late for me. It's too late. And I changed that thinking, and it's true. It is never too late. It is never too late to step in and do what you want to do. Never, ever, and it's interesting. This is a great example of how I came to embrace that more than ever. This was, God, I don't have maybe 7 years ago. And they had, at the Minnesota Institute of Arts here, they had a Matisse show. And of course I was so excited to go to the show, and it was lovely. It was curated so well.
What is it? What is a Matisse show?
Life. Oh, Matisse, the artist Matisse.
Okay,
and
okay,
yeah, it may not come through. And so the way they did it is they took us a journey through his life, starting as a child all the way until his 90s before he died. And what amazed me was, throughout his career, through this journey, he was always creating. His art changed almost every decade. And it was this evolution of an artist. And when he was in his 80s, he did some of his most famous works. And you're looking at, like, look what he did. And by the way, it was different from what he did a decade before. And yet it was stunning. And I'm like, I remember saying at the time to my husband, I said, this is a true example of, it's never too late, and you're really not done until you say you're done. And it was
Beautiful.
beautiful. And that was just really transformed me at that moment. And that's why I always say to people, I don't care if you're 60 or 70, if you want to do something, it's never too late.
I love it.
Never too late to step into your artistry, ever. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's been so exciting talking to you. I just feel, I mean, I've made a choice myself. This year is a year where I'm giving myself a little push to become different and to change, because I sometimes can be a little bit like, oh, things are working, so just keep going with the way things are working. But
Yeah.
I'm just feeling like there's something new on the horizon, and I'm wanting to embrace that. So I just love our conversation because it really is inspirational to me, and it helps me to remind myself that, the dreams I had when I was a teenager could be relevant
Yeah.
even now. And there's stuff that I can do. I'm at the beginning again. I can start something fresh if I
Yes.
want, and I can build on what I've had from before, and nothing takes away what I've already done. Like, what I've already done comes with me.
Exactly. You're so right about that. Interesting on that same point. I remember for many years when I was doing the dual career, especially the earlier years, I kept not beating myself up, but kept saying to myself, "Oh, I just wish I could perform full time." Because I had a lot of friends who were full time performers, but I always had the serious day job. I didn't do the waitress thing, right? I did the serious day job, and I loved it. The thing is, I thrived in my day job, right? But I always called it my day job because as a singer actor, it's like, I'm this performer, and I remember for many years I kept like, "Oh, I wish I just do this full time." And what's interesting, especially as I got, to like the 2016-17 timeframe when I was deciding should I do something more, merge my careers together. I realized that actually having that dual career actually fed both parts of Erin. I know even if I did full-time performing, I do know I would have had to do more than just perform. I would have had to produce. I would have had to do something more because I realized I had to feed both sides of my brain, which is probably why I did both. And I even remember when I was in college and I was a television film major, and with that, you had to do everything. You were directing, producing, you were hanging lights, you had to like do camera, you had to do everything. And I was good at all that. I was good at the story stuff. I was also good in front of the camera, obviously. That's what I love doing. And I was great at directing. But the one thing I thrived on, and even my professor at the very end, he says, "You're an amazing producer. You have all the makings of a producer." And what that meant is I understood the whole thing. And when I look back in my day job, that's basically, I took all of my creative skills in producing and I put that into the creative agency. That's why I thrived there. I was able to be in a creative space, be a producer. I mean, I climbed up the ladder all the way to VP, but again, I was feeding that producer side, that business side, but with creativity. It had to be creative. And then I was also singing and acting. So I realized that it was really, when I look back now, I don't have any regrets.
I'm glad.
Because I really thrived. And I was able to create this company, Inspiration Squared, because of all that experience. So I'm so excited for you because I can't wait to see what's next for you, because the beauty of also starting my own business was also realizing it's amazing how much this business has evolved in 4 years. And I realized the one beauty about doing our own businesses, we're constantly evolving. We're constantly growing and adding new things and going deeper in things. And it's been quite a journey. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think running something yourself is a personal evolution as much as like a business evolution. But we're going to be
Yes.
wrapping things up in a second, and I'd love to just ask you if there's anything else you'd like to say to the listeners before we sign off.
I would say, if this is really resonating with you, make this the year that you decide to put yourself first. If you're hearing that calling right now, give yourself that gift and say, I'm going to take some time and I'm going to figure out what is next for me, because it's going to take you on a journey where you are going to thrive because you've given yourself that gift with grace. So that would be my note.
That's beautiful. And just anything is possible. We've got to take those steps, and we discover the
Yeah,
path by taking the next step. A lot of people
you're
think they need
right.
to know too many steps in advance.
Yes, that's so true. And you don't take what do they say? Put one foot in front of the other and just walk forward. Yeah.
I love it. Oh, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Erin. I'd like to thank Erin Duffy for being my guest today. Please check her out. I'm going to put all your links into the show notes. And if anyone is a mid-career professional trying to re-establish themselves and refocus on what you really want, then Erin's your girl. She's going to take you there. And I look forward to being on the podcast again. I say I'm seeing everyone. I'm going to see you all again, hear you all again. I'm making a mess at the end of this podcast now, but I'm looking forward to my next podcast. And I really like to thank you, Erin, for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this time. This has been a fun discussion. Thanks, Aideen.
You're welcome.